Assalam.
Everybody can hear the voice, inshallah.
Yes, it's perfect, inshallah. Sheikh, are you managing to see all of the messages from the chats?
What do you say?
Can you see the messages from the chat box? Have you been able to see them all?
Yes, I see. Yes, I see people. Yeah, the participants can see them all now.
Yes, and can you see the messages that they send
The
through?
last one. Yes, when they send any message, I see it.
Okay,
Because
mashallah.
they click chats. So last message is yes, right?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Let me share the desktop. Next time, inshallah, I will upload the file inside so I will know how to get it through the tablets. So you can't see the word file, right? Everybody can
Yes,
see
Sheikh.
it, inshallah?
Yes, Shaykhana.
Yes.
Inshallah. Do you like us to start now, inshallah?
Yes, inshallah.
Yes, please, Sheikh.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين ورحمة الله للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All the praise and all the glory is due to Allah, and I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his last prophet and messenger. May the blessings and peace of Allah be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and those who follow his path up to the day of judgment. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this first session on Umdat al-Ahkam. In today's session, I will try to be, first of all, I will elaborate the methodology and the importance of the course that we are teaching very briefly, and then we will start with the first ahadith, inshallah. It is very important when we study Islam or when we study fiqh that we study three basic sciences. Number one, ilm al-fiqh itself, the Islamic law or Islamic jurisprudence. Number two, we study usul al-fiqh, which basically deals with the methodology of how to use a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in eliciting and deriving legal rulings. Number three is ilm ahadith al-ahkam, or the legal traditions. And in this rubric, or in this genre, we basically discuss the ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which the scholars based their opinions on. So this science is basically on the legal traditions. It doesn't talk about ahadith on softening the hearts or biographical traditions, etc. It is restricted basically to the ahadith on legal matters. So it's called the ilm hadith al-ahkam. And it is very necessary for everybody to, when you study fiqh, when you study Islam, that we study those ahadith basically. So we are going to study the primary books on this field. We have three important and very well-known books. The most famous book is Umdat al-Ahkam. Umdat al-Ahkam is a book which was written by Imam Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. So Umdat al-Ahkam is just a book of hadith, as you will see, and I'm going to upload it inshallah on the Dropbox. So Umdat al-Ahkam is a book which consists of 416 hadiths approximately. All of those hadiths are arranged according to the books of fiqh. So it starts with purification, prayers, fasting, zakat, rituals, broader sense, and then transactions, and then it talks about penalties, crimes and penalties, and finally it talks about jurisdiction. So it only talks about ahadith or compiles ahadith. The significance of Umdat al-Ahkam that we are going to study is that it relied intensively, primarily on Bukhari and Muslim alone. So the ahadith, all the ahadith include Umdat al-Ahkam, they are authentic. And they are the most authentic books because the massive majority of those ahadith have been agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, which means both Imam Bukhari and Muslim have already compiled those ahadith. What Imam Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi did is that he classified those ahadith and extracted them from Bukhari and Muslim and set them under titles. And those titles are classified according to the book of hadith. What we are going to do is that we will study, inshallah, during this semester, almost 100 ahadith. Alhamdulillah, I could, by the help of Allah and His support, write a commentary on, right now, almost 200 ahadith of the book, half of the book. And I'm in the process, inshallah, of finishing it all. So our plan is to start with 100 ahadith and just to become in this semester. And those hadiths, we will try tediously, inshallah, to memorize them in Arabic and also to know their meanings in English and to understand how we can derive the legal ruling from the respective source. So the basic goal of this course, my brothers and sisters, is not memorization. Memorization would actually help you to recall the adillah, the proofs which are necessary in your study of fiqh. But the primary goal is to develop skill and talent in your own selves, how to look at the texts of a hadith and how to understand the meaning of the hadith, how to derive the legal ruling of the hadith, how the scholars reflected to the meanings of this hadith, how the scholars try to maximize the benefit by getting all possible meanings from each single phrase and word which is included in the text of this hadith. This is the basic goal. This is the primary goal of our course, is to train you on how to derive, to tell you how the scholars reflected to the text of this hadith by deriving all what is possible. We are going, inshallah, to study, as I mentioned to you, from 5 to 7 ahadith per week. I know that it is something which is ambitious, and I think today we will not be able to do this, but we'll try, inshallah, we'll do our best. And it will basically also rely on your study at home, because I'm going to give you handouts of those hadiths that I made the commentary. I ask every one of you, inshallah, to read the text intensively and to help in re-editing and proofreading the text in English, because it will be a textbook in the future, inshallah, for you and for the seekers of knowledge. We, alhamdulillah, conducted many editorial work of this book in English, and for many native speakers. Some of my students, they have already delved deep in actually proofreading, but still, if there are some ideas are ambiguous and some ideas are not clear, especially for the English speaking people and students and seekers of knowledge. So I was actually recommending everybody. I have already mentioned that in the I have already mentioned this in the you see in the present in the course description. You are brother Ihsan. He is saying, or sister Ihsan, I'm sorry if I confused about the name. Brother Ihsan, alhamdulillah. So it is actually we are required to memorize the text of the hadith, and only the first narrator, the name of the Sahabi of the Prophet ﷺ. My brothers, by doing this, it will be very helpful for you. And believe me, after memorization, you will understand that you will be you will get more about Arabic language also, because I recommend everybody to memorize the vocabulary first, to know the vocabulary, to make analysis of the hadith. So it will be actually a lesson in Arabic and getting more vocabulary. And at the same time, when you memorize it, inshallah, it will be more beneficial for everybody. Okay? So this is my point. We will, I made the editorial, or what you can call proofreading. It's a bonus grade for everybody. I set up actually the grading system, which relies on attendance and on also it depends on the memorization, attendance, and also on the final exam, inshallah. Anybody have any questions or inquiries? I tried to make it very simple for you, but if you have any room for questions or before actually starting this course, most welcome, inshallah. Will you be expounding on ikhtilaf of the different madahib within the ahadith? What do you expect? Salman Ahmed is asking this question. A deep share. So you would like actually to sharh. Okay, this what I made actually. I designed this book basically for the seekers of knowledge. And when some brothers saw it, they said that it is not for the laymen, and it is difficult because actually you are making it difficult. I said, subhanallah, we are targeting actually the seekers of knowledge with this commentary, basically because this is a category of people that may benefit, inshallah, from this course or this book. And this is what I reflected in this book, inshallah. So you will find for sure the disagreements among scholars. What is more important is not to just get these disagreements, but the point is, my brothers and sisters, is to put this or to know why the scholars have already disagreed. You should actually concentrate on the reasons the scholars had to base their opinions. This is very important because I'm not, and another point which is very important here, that I don't prefer actually to prefer one view over the other. I will, in some certain cases, give you the preferred opinion. But you understand what I'm saying? I would like you, the main reason of this course is to study the evidence, to go deeper into how the scholars use this evidence. So it will make us, uh, yes, there are 3 books on ilm al-mustalah hadith, yes, which I mentioned. The first book is actually Umdat al-Ahkam. The second book is Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah. It is Umdat al-Ahkam, and also the second is a book which was written by Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Anybody knows it? It's called, anybody knows it? The second book which was written, it's Bulugh al-Maram. Exactly, it's Bulugh al-Maram. And the third book was written by the grandfather of Ibn Taymiyyah. It's called Ibn Taymiyyah al-Jadd. Ibn Taymiyyah, the grandfather. Or Ibn Taymiyyah al-Jadd, he wrote al-Muntaqa, the book which is called al-Muntaqa. And later al-Muntaqa was commented by Imam al-Shawkani in his well-known Nail al-Awtar, Sharh Muntaqa al-Akhbar. So these are the 3 grades of Ahkam Ahadith, as you see. So Umdat al-Ahkam is the first book that we will go through. And my teaching, inshallah, I did not prepare PowerPoint presentation, but I have already given, subhanallah, a, I have written and I will share with you, inshallah, the hadith and with their commentaries. I will also share with you my translation of the whole book, the translation of all ahadith, so it would be accessible for you on your tablets or in your uh, on your phone, cell phone, to read and to memorize when you are available, inshallah. So I have it. It's only Arabic, English. So I will share it also with you, inshallah. It is pending publication, so it is for your own personal use because it's not yet ready for publication, either the whole ahadith or even the commentary. The methodology that we are going to do, inshallah, is that we will have at our session, we will conduct it in the form of the shuyukh that I received from my teachers in Haram, in the Prophet's Masjid, and of the scholars that I received ijazas. I forgot actually to tell you that at the end of this course, inshallah, at the end of the fourth course of Umdat al-Ahkam, when we finish it all, I'm going, inshallah, to grant you ijaza in Umdat al-Ahkam because I received it from many of my shuyukh here in Medina, alhamdulillah. So I'm going, inshallah, to grant you the ijaza when we finish the whole book by the mercy and help and support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My brothers and sisters, inshallah, we will start by inviting a brother to read the Arabic text of the hadith for us, another brother to read the English text of the hadith for us, and afterwards we will go through, for example, the narrator, and then the brother in English will read, this subtitle in number. You see, let me actually also explain for you the commentary that I did. This commentary includes as follows. This is the first hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab on intentions. This is actions are by intention. So I provide a title for this hadith. And then I give the Arabic text of the hadith. Afterwards, I add the English text of the hadith. Afterwards, I focus on certain vocabulary of the hadith. You see here, and this vocabulary focus on linguistic analysis of certain words. It doesn't include each single word, but it focuses on certain words. Afterwards, number 5, focus on the narrator of this hadith. We give a short biography on the narrator of this hadith. Number 6, we delve into the hadith jurisprudence. By hadith jurisprudence, we sort the hadith into segments. So we start with the first sentence, and then we get all the legal rulings derived from this segment. So when we say, verily all actions are but by divine intentions, but by driven intentions, so I get every single legal ruling that may be derived from this hadith, from this segment. And then we move to the next segment in this format. This what I have, inshallah. So my brothers and sisters, if I hope that you are familiar with the whole system and we're familiar with also the commentary that I prepared, inshallah. Do you have any further questions, please? Because I don't like to start without everybody being comfortable and everybody is enthusiastic also and have this self-motivation to start the journey with the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So everybody is, do you have any further questions or any inquiries? Okay. Let us, inshallah, start with this hadith. So I need one brother to read the text in Arabic and another brother to read the text in English.
Sheikh, I could read.
And afterwards, yes, Brother Muhammad?
Usama here, Sheikh.
Yes, Brother Usama. Yes, go ahead, Ya Sheikh Usama, inshallah. Bismillah.
بسم الله. عن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وفي رواية بالنية وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة يتزوجها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه.
نعم. The English translation.
I can read the
Who is
next one,
going
Sheikh.
to read for us? Sure.
On the authority of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, certainly all actions are only determined by intentions, and certainly every man shall only have that which he intended. Thus he whose migration was to Allah and His Messenger, then his migration was to Allah and His Messenger. And he whose migration was to achieve some worldly benefit, or to take a woman in marriage, his migration was to that which he migrated.
Barakallahu fikum. This is the first hadith in Umdat al-Ahkam. Let me focus on just the vocabulary, and then I move to the narrator of the hadith. The word innama, it is composed of two words, inna and ma. Inna means it is for emphasis of for showing certainty, and ma means only. So it is this expression in Arabic is called uslubu hasrin. Uslubu hasr means that it is, which may be translated as certainly only, which means exclusiveness. You shows exclusiveness, as if you say certainly actions are not regarded as actions except if they have, or only when they have intentions. So this is a literal translation of this expression. Al-a'mal, it is a plural for the word amal, which means action. And this action may be an action of the tongue, like a speech. It may be an action of the limb, a limb of the body, or it may be an action of the heart also, because all of those things need intentions. And in the word the binniyat, ba is, we are going to explain that right now, but anyhow, aniyat means intentions, and the word the hijrah here refers to the migration. And in the context of this hadith, it refers to the Prophet's migration from Mecca to Medina, which was obligatory at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dunya means worldly life. The word yusibuha, it is a verb which has a pronoun, which means yusibuha means to achieve or to get. فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. فهجرته means his migration. إلى ما هاجر إليه means was to that which he migrated. This hadith, my brothers and sisters, have been narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And he is the second caliph of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the first one to be called Amirul Mu'mineen. And he is buried next to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam along with Abu Bakr. And he was one of the most powerful and influential Muslim caliphs in history. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam talked about Umar ibn al-Khattab especially in two occasions. The first one is when the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "O Allah, guide one of the two Umars to Islam." And he was meaning Umar ibn al-Khattab or Amr ibn Hisham, because both of them were very influential. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam of making Umar a Muslim. The other occasion is when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the authentic hadith that ما من أمة إلا فيها محدثون. Any nation before you that had some muhaddathun, and if there is only one muhaddith in this ummah, he would definitely be Umar. He would definitely be Umar. Imam Ibn Hajar talked about the word muhaddathun, and he said it is a person who receives an inspiration from the angels, who is inspired by the angels. or he is a person that the truth flows from his tongue while he doesn't know. This is the case of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He spoke the truth, decisive truth. That's why he was called Al-Faruq, because he was like a criterion between the truth and falsehood. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu died when he was stabbed by the Majusi slave Abu Lulu'a, as you saw, as you know, in Medina. Let us now move to the some of the legal rulings that may be deduced from this hadith. The brother, inshallah, who read the English text, he can read just the subtitle after hadith jurisprudence. So I will try, inshallah, to comment on it in detail, and then when I move, we will move ahead to read the next segment of the hadith. Now.
Okay, Sheikh. On the authority of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, this is the only authentic version of...
just reading the title, inshallah. The subtitle. This hadith, my brothers and sisters, has been transmitted only by Umar ibn al-Khattab. What does it mean? That the only companion who received this hadith from Umar ibn al-Khattab, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was Umar ibn al-Khattab. So according to the terminology of hadith, we call this hadith gharib. Gharib is the hadith which was transmitted by only one reporter in any of its paths of transmission or in any of its generations. This hadith, my brothers, have been also reported by one single person from Umar ibn al-Khattab by the name of Alqama ibn Waqqas al-Laythi. Alqama ibn Waqqas al-Laythi. And later it was received by only one person from Alqama, and his name is Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi. Most of the people, they thought that this hadith, the hadith about intentions, has been reported by so many companions and so many followers of the Prophet ﷺ, but this is not true. This hadith has been reported by only Umar ibn al-Khattab, and later it was reported by only one single person. So this hadith is called the gharib. Being gharib doesn't necessarily mean, my brothers, that if the hadith is gharib, it doesn't necessarily mean that this hadith is not authentic, because the classification of hadith into gharib and mashhur, this is according to the number of the reporters in its chain of transmissions. But this classification overlaps of whether this hadith is authentic or not. The point that I wanted to convey in this hadith, you know, this hadith has been transmitted by the Prophet ﷺ on his mimbar. When Umar ibn al-Khattab transmitted this hadith, he transmitted this hadith also on mimbar, but only one person who transmitted it. And it has been circulated afterwards to become one of the most authentic hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The legal ruling that we can derive from this sentence is that even if this hadith has been reported by only one person, so we technically call this hadith ahad or mutawatir. We can answer. We call this hadith is ahad or mutawatir. Ahad. Why? Because the mutawatir is a hadith which has been transmitted by a large number of people in each stage of its transmission, to the extent that it is impossible for this great number of people to collide or to collaborate to fabricate a lie. This is not like this. It has been transmitted by only one. So the first legal ruling, my brothers and sisters, that we derive from this hadith, it is a proof for the principle of acting upon legal rulings derived from ahad hadith. This is a proof that we act upon the ahad hadith. You know, there is a controversy among some people that they believe that ahad hadith cannot be relied on as a source in aqidah. But according to the authentic opinion and the massive majority of all Muslim scholars, is that Hadith al-Ahad is a source of Aqidah and it is a source of Sharia also. Why? On which point did we base our opinion? We based our opinion on numerous examples. The Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, and the Prophet ﷺ told him, according to the authentic hadith, that inform them about the testimony of faith. So if they believe that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his last prophet and messenger, inform them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made obligatory on them 5 daily prayers. If they believe in it and act upon it, tell them that Allah has prescribed a share in their wealth to be taken from the wealthy to be given to the poor, etc. So the Prophet ﷺ delegated Mu'az to deliver the concepts of belief to the people of Yemen, and he was only one person. The Messenger ﷺ sent his letters and messages to the monarchs and rulers throughout the whole world, and he used to send just only one person with each message. He sent only one messenger, and he was Ahad. And also, there were numerous examples in the practice of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ. You remember when the grandmother came to the Messenger to Abu Bakr Siddiq seeking her share of inheritance, and they didn't find anything in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when Al-Mughira came and he delivered to Abu Bakr Siddiq just only one piece of information which he received from the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr submitted to this hadith and he acted accordingly. My brothers and sisters, believing in the Ahad hadith has been established by Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And we do not differentiate as long as this Ahad hadith has been transmitted to us in an authentic path of transmission. So as long as it is authentic, it is a source of Sharia and it is a source of Aqidah. Somebody may ask me, so why we only have a path of transmission which remain? We are supposed actually to have so numerous people who heard it from the Prophet ﷺ on the minbar. Or we are supposed to have numerous followers who received it from Umar ibn Khattab. Yes, it is right, you are correct. But when we had this hadith remained in the anthologies of hadith, we make sure that this hadith has been transmitted in the academic circles of hadith. That's why it was recorded and registered. It doesn't prelude the possibility that this same hadith has been circulated orally among other Sahaba and other people. But we didn't receive these chains of transmissions basically because we received only the transmitted recorded documents. And we didn't have access to all different documents in all stages of history of Muslims. So we had it because it was the only recorded copy which remained in the published sources and the manuscripts. Yes. Yes, go ahead to the next title.
Yep. Verily all actions by driven intentions.
So the Prophet, according to this statement that the Prophet ﷺ expressed, it is expressed, as I mentioned to you, same way of uslub al-hasr. Uslub al-hasr means its exclusiveness. So the Prophet ﷺ said, verily all actions are but driven intentions, which means that an action is not regarded as a legal action except if it has an intention. This is the literal meaning of this statement. So what does it mean in other words? It means that every action must have an intention. Every action must have an intention. So every action must have an intention behind it. Every deed which is performed by a rational human being must have an intention, a driving intention behind it. The Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So what is the letter, the preposition before an-niyat? It is B an-niyat. So the preposition is called ba, right? What is the meaning of ba in Arabic language, my brothers and sisters?
With or by?
Who can't? It's by, okay? The ba has two basic meanings in Arabic language. If you say, for example, the جاء محمد بالسيارة. He came by bus, which means that if there is no bus, so Muhammad wouldn't have reached it. So the reason of his coming was actually the bus, right? So that's why we use the ba. So ba here is showing the cause, the position. So this is the first meaning of the ba. It shows position. So when we say إنما الأعمال بالنيات, which means that there is no action without a driving intention which represents the cause of this action. Understand? The second meaning, when we say جاء محمد بإبراهيم, جاء محمد بإبراهيم, Muhammad came by or with. What does it mean? With Ibrahim, right? So the word ba in the second meaning is ba is called for showing companionship or to accompany something. So the word ba in this context, in this phrase, may be interpreted to have those two meanings. It may be interpreted to mean actions are but are caused by driving intentions. Actions are being driven by intentions. So the cause of actions is, what is the cause behind an action? Is the intention, right? Or it may mean that action comes with the intention, because the ba, as I mentioned to you, may be translated as for or by, or it may be translated as with. So in those two meanings, we have two different meanings. So if we believe that the ba in this context means for or by, it means that intention is a constituent element of any action. What it is rukn. What does it mean if it is rukn? If you don't have an intention, so the whole action is invalid. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? And if it is rukn, so the intention must come before the action. If it is rukn, if it is a constituent element, so it must come before the action. So the intention must precede the action. Number two, if we regard the ba as to indicate companionship or to be interpreted as with, so in this case, we believe that the condition is the intention is just a condition, is just a condition. So the scholar said that intention is regarded as a rukn, as also as a condition of the act. How do we explain it? We mean that any act must be preceded by an intention, and this intention must accompany that act throughout it. So throughout the whole act, when you are making prayer, you maintain the intention that you have. So if you turn your intention away by saying, no, I'm no longer making prayers, I'm just making exercise, so in this case, your prayer is invalid. So the scholars concluded that intention is a rukn and a condition at the same time. You understand this? It is a rukn and a condition at the same time. The scholars also concluded that the intention is a prerequisite for all pure acts of worship. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, like prayers and Hajj. So any act must have an intention. If a person have a wudu, it must have a the prerequisite of wudu is intention. So what is the job? What is the basic function, the basic job of an intention? Scholars said that intention has three basic jobs. Number one, intention can discriminate a habit from an act of worship. Because when a person makes exercise, but he intends by doing these certain motions that they are prayers, he changed the habit from being a habit to a practice. This is the first job of an intention, to discriminate between a habit and an act of worship, an act of devotion. Number two, the second job of intention is to show us the type of act of worship, whether you are making fasting or you are making prayers or you are making hajj, etc. Number three, you are setting up the grade of this ibadah. Some of the ibadats are made in congregation, in jama'ah, and some of them are obligatory, some of them are supererogatory, etc. You understand what I'm saying? So the main primary causes of an intention are, number one, is to discriminate an act of worship from ibadah, from a habit. Number two is to show the type of this act of worship. And number three, it is to show the grade of this ibadah. So I'm asking you a question. When you are making Asr prayer or Maghrib prayer right now in Sydney, or Isha prayer, you already finished, Alhamdulillah, you already finished your Isha. So if you are making it, what are the three things that you have to put in your heart when you are making intention? Question is for everybody, based on what we explained. You hear me, brothers, sisters?
You need to have the intention. Uh,
Hmm.
you need to be you need to have the intention to pray first of all.
Excellent. Number two,
You have to specify which prayer, Maghrib or Isha, or
which
which prayer you pray.
excellent, right? Right. Number three, whether it is
Um,
obligatory or recommended, right? Or if it is actually, if it is congregational or it's by yourself. You understand what I'm saying?
yep.
Yeah. So these are the basic jobs. This is the basic job of an intention. Uh, Another point on this, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions. A question is raised here. Is it necessary to be an action to have an intention? Like, for example, if I'm abandoning something, abandonment of something, does an abandonment of something is regarded an action? Can anybody answer? Like, for example, person saw some haram stuff in front of him, so he lowered his gaze and then he said astaghfirullah and then he passed away.
Yes.
He must abandon for the sake of Allah.
Yes, if he's making it for the sake of Allah, even the abandonment of certain things are technically called actions, because he has already taken a proactive action by preventing himself from doing the haram, right? So this is very important. So even if it is, the hadith call them actions, but they are included, even the abandonments are included in the meaning of this hadith. Intentions are very important, my brothers and sisters, because they change, as I mentioned to you, habits into acts of worship. And a person can change all of his life into ibadah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, even a bite that you put in the mouth of your wife is an act of charity. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the best charity that you can give in your life is a charity that you give to your wife or to your family. And then the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, brother,
verily every man shall have but that which he intended.
if we contemplate on the meaning of this phrase, it means a person's intention determines the reward for the deed, even if the result of the deed is not what the person desired. The Prophet ﷺ based the reward on the action or in the result. The Prophet ﷺ said, every man shall have but that which he intended. He didn't say, verily every man shall have but that which he acted. So it means a person's intention is the determiner for the reward of that person. This is further confirmed by the authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which he said, for you, when you know, there is the story of a man who has given charity to his son. So the father came to the Prophet ﷺ and said that my zakah is not accepted because I just gave it to my son. So the Prophet ﷺ said, for you is what you intended. And he said to the son, for you is what you talk. So the Prophet ﷺ referred to that person that he was rewarded according to his intention. There is another hadith of the Messenger which he said, وإن يعني يدرك الإنسان بعمله ما بنيته ما لا يدركه بعمله. Intentions go beyond actions, which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward his slaves according to their intentions, even if the intended deeds are not realized or achieved. The Prophet ﷺ said, in Medina there are people left behind. We do not pass through any ravine or valley except that they are with us. They have been kept behind due to valid reasons or for valid excuses. So if a person intends to do an act seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it was mixed with some other intentions, according to the correct view, that all of his action will be actually null and void. Because that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. So if a person intends an act to be for the sake of showing off, for the sake of being seen by others, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will invalidate his act, because based on his intention he didn't crave after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is according to the literal meaning of this hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked about different categories of people who fought in the cause of Allah, one which actually fought because he would like to be seen by others, another to be actually seen as a courageous person, and a third who actually fought for the sake of tribalism and being enthusiastic about defending himself and his tribe. So the Prophet ﷺ said, all of them are held martyrs if they originally intend to fight so that the word of Allah is the highest. So this is based on their intentions. So according to every intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward the person. Also, according to this phrase, every man will have what he has intended, which he intended. Means that as much a person can compile many intentions in every single act, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him for this. And the scholars have actually differentiated between two types of acts. There are certain acts which may be actually shared by other people, by other, they may have one intention for more than one intention for the same act. Like for example, when you are making when you are making prayers when you enter the masjid, you can put in your intention that you are making those two rak'ats as two rak'ats for tawbah, which follow the practice of making wudu. Or you can, and also you can combine with this intention the intention of saluting the masjid, greeting the masjid. When you first enter the masjid, you start with your prayers. And you can also make them as two rak'ats of ad-duha prayer, for example. So all of those can be compiled in the same intention. These certain acts actually they can share the same act, different intentions for the same act, but there are certain actions that cannot have the same. There are certain actions which cannot have, which cannot be done for one intention. Like for example, if you say, I'm going to pray those 4 rak'ats as sunnah and as fard at the same time, or I'm making up some days that I missed from Ramadan, and at the same time, those same 4 days are actually a part of the 6 days that the Prophet ﷺ recommended us to fast after the month of Ramadan, which are the 6 of Shawwal, the 6 days of Shawwal. Why? Because there are certain acts of worship which can have same intentions and others do not accept this concept. Also, we understand from this phrase that validation and invalidation for deeds primarily relies on driving intention behind those deeds. So if the intentions are valid, the act will be valid. And if the intentions are not valid, the act itself will not be valid. This hadith, my brothers, also focuses on another point, which demonstrates a this hadith also demonstrates a very important issue, that a Muslim must have knowledge before acting. A person must have the intention to do an act which is proper or at least permissible. This is the benefit of knowledge, my brothers and sisters. As much a person acquires knowledge, he can acquire more intentions, more and more intentions. And this is the benefit of this hadith and the discussion. My brothers and sisters, I think I will uh, stop at this point, inshallah, in today's session. It's better because uh, basically I don't like to take much of your time, so that from the next session, inshallah, uh, uh, we will have more, inshallah, time to take more ahadith, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then I will also share with you the materials that you can read even ahead of time before coming. So I don't like to go beyond the schedule that you had, because I know some of you might have some commitments, so I don't like to keep you, and some of you they have work. So I will stop at this point today on Umdat al-Ahkam, hoping inshallah in the next session we will go further, inshallah, and taking more than 7 hadiths, inshallah.
Barakallahu
Do
fikum,
you have
Shaykh.
any further questions or any questions? I don't like to put much yani burden on you, inshallah. Okay. So there are certain comments, I think, or questions that I can go through very quickly. You have mentioned a few times the phrase حول أهل السنة والجماعة. So what is the meaning? You mean that what is أهل السنة والجماعة? أهل السنة والجماعة, it is a term which refers to the people who adhered to the principles to the principles of Islam as practiced by the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ in the first 3 generations, they are called as-Salaf as-Salih, as-Salaf as-Salih. So this term briefly means the people who adhere to the primary sources of. They are the people who adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as being understood by the first 3 generations. There are other qualities and other attributes of this that I can share with you, inshallah. I had a course on fiqh al-iman that I can share with you, inshallah, and you can review the qualities of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. If there is a significant difference between narration, Imam al-Nawawi mentioned in 40 and the rewarding of imra'atin yankiha, yes, exactly. No, because actually Imam Bukhari himself, he reported this hadith in 6 different occasions in his Sahih. So sometimes he used different wordings of the same hadith. So Imam al-Nawawi chose one wording of those 6 wordings. The first hadith, it is mentioned first time in the first hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, but even it has been reported in 6 other occasions. Can you just clearly explain? Okay, I didn't get the. Are there any Arabic shuruh you would recommend? I would recommend actually تيسير العلام in commentary of عمدة الأحكام. All ahadith are classified as ahad or mutawatir. Yes, this is the basic classification. We will study it inshallah in hadith terminology. So all the ahadith are either ahad or mutawatir. The massive majority of ahadith are ahad. Is the opinion that Abdullah ibn Jahsh was the first to be considered Amir al-Mu'mineen? No, it is actually the first one to be. Uh, Abdullah ibn Jahsh actually died as a disbeliever, as you know, he apostated Islam. Do you know that? When he traveled to Abyssinia, so as a commander of the faithful, this first title was not given even to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. It was given. Abu Bakr was called the Khalifa to Rasulullah, the successor of the Prophet, but Amir al-Mu'mineen was given to Umar al-Khattab. In what ways علم الحديث الأحكام different on أصول الفقه? علم أحاديث الأحكام, it deals with the raw materials. It deals only with ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and it deals on how to deduce the rulings from them. Usul al-fiqh, it deals with the Quran, hadith, and different sources and different proofs. So hadith al-ahkam is restricted to only the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ as one of the proofs of fiqh. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Any further questions or any inquiries, my brothers and sisters?
Sheikh, I had a question.
Yes.
Sheikh, you mentioned that for some of the actions of ibadah, you can combine different intentions. For example, the tahta masjid and the duha prayer, for example. But certain actions you can't. Sheikh, how do you determine which actions or which ibadat you can combine the intentions and which ibadat you can't? Is it like a way to determine that?
Naam, Jazakallah khairan. It's a good question. Basically, the main criterion of this, the general rule about it, and for sure this rule has some exceptions, which is if the act itself, if the act is intended for itself, it is intended for itself, or it is intended for a purpose. So, for example, if the act is intended for a purpose, like for example, when we enter the masjid, we are supposed, the first thing to do is to start our entrance of the masjid by saluting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or by making raka'at, by making prayers, right? So if you make those, so the main objective of this is to salute the masjid by entering the masjid. The first thing to do is to enter the masjid. So if you do it through 2 raka'at, if you do it through obligatory prayers, as long as it is a prayer, so it is, this intention is achieved. You why? Because the act itself is not intended for a specific thing. But when it is intended for itself specifically, you cannot share other thing with it. Like for example, okay, this is a obligatory prayer, this is Asr prayer. Can you combine with this Asr prayer Maghrib prayer also, or Isha prayer? No, you cannot, because it is intended to fulfill a duty on you, which is fulfilling 4 rak'ats at that time, which is called dhuhr. You understand what I'm saying? Such is the case for fasting. If you are fasting, supererogatory fasting, like for example, you do regularly each Monday and Thursday. It happens that this Monday and Thursday comes along with, for example, the 3 days that a person can observe fasting throughout the whole month. Can we get the 2 intentions? Yes, we can get the 2 intentions, because there is no conflict in this case. You understand what I'm saying? And for this general rule, we have some exceptions here and there. It is related to legal maxims, so if we need to reach a decisive rule about it, we have to go into much details about it. But the basic conclusion about it, if the act of worship is intended for a certain goal and which for a certain goal, so we cannot share it with others. But if it is possible to share the same goal with it, it's possible.
جزاك الله خير.
Uh,
These
Sheikh,
are by intention is nah.
Sheikh, I had a question. You mentioned that there was a group of people that didn't consider Ahad Hadith as a source of legislation. Can you expand on who that group was? Were they from Ahl Sunnah, and what was their reasoning for taking such a stance?
Those people who rejected actually al hadith al ahad, the consensus of the Muslim jurists is actually that uh, the massive majority of the Muslim scholars, they accept the hadith al ahad in terms of legislation, sharia. With the exception of al-Mu'tazila. Al-Mu'tazila, they have a view about it. Or we have some exceptions at certain areas. Like, for example, the hadith al-ahad when it conflicts with analogy. Or hadith al-ahad when it conflicts with, like, for example, the collective mutawatir practice of the people of Medina according to the Malikiyya. These are certain exceptions in certain areas of fiqh. But the massive majority of the Muslims, even Malikis and Hanafis and everybody, they admit the concept that hadith al-ahad are a part of Sharia and we can rely on them as a source of Sharia. What there is a group which is called Al-Quraniyun. They actually came by mingling with the Western colonizers, and it came later actually. But it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ expected them. But they widespread actually in actually not admitting the authority of hadith al-ahad as a source of legislation. That the true controversy goes into relying on hadith al-ahad as a source of aqidah, because this is a controversy which happens even among the many people. And Sheikh al-Albani has a letter about it. You can find it even translated on the internet about hadith al-ahad as source of sharia and aqidah also.
I had one more question regarding intentions.
Sure.
Yes. So you mentioned that obviously clarifying your intention was part of the shurut of your actions being accepted. So in the context of prayer, as we know, we identified that we have to know what prayer we're praying. If it's a fard or a sunnah, etc. But outside of that, in terms of specificity, do you have to make sure that all three intentions, for example, the one we discussed, are all in line? Or if you accidentally forget one or two of those intentions, does intending one of those intentions validate your action altogether?
Good question. When you, for example, pray an obligatory prayers, you have to fulfill the first condition, which is you intend that it is a prayer, and number two, that this act that you are intending to do is obligatory. This is Zuhr or Asr, and it is obligatory. Okay? You can add congregation if you are making it in congregation or not, but it's not obligatory to have this intention, because even if you can make prayers even in congregation or not, but if you are joining a congregation, you have to do. For example, if it is sunnah prayer, it is sufficient to just intend that it is only prayer. You are intending by your act that you are intending by your act to make prayers. That's it. But if you are making, for example, yes, if it is but if it is sunnah ratiba, which means sunnah which is done before zuhr and after zuhr, so you have to intend that this is a sunnah of zuhr or this is sunnah of asr. So three occasions. If it is obligatory, you have to intend that it is an act of prayer, it is obligatory, and whether it is zuhr or asr. If it is just sunnah, specified sunnah, so you have to specify, you have to intend that it is prayer, you are intending by your action that you are making prayer, and number two, that it is the specific sunnah that you are performing. If it is nafl mutlaq, absolute nafl, which means it is general prayer that you perform like Qiyamul Layl, like normal prayer that you do, just nafil without any restrictions. The only condition for it is just to intend in your heart that you are making prayers. By your action, by making these actions, you are making prayers. That's it. You understand it now?
Yes, Sheikh. And just following on from that, in a separate context, if you intend for a certain action, but then you continue that action for something else. For example, wudu, you intend to make the wudu for Salat al-Maghrib, but then can you use that same intention if you haven't invalidated your wudu? Can you use that same wudu for Salat al-Isha? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. When you are making wudu, for example, you have a general intention of removing the state of ritual impurity. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And by removing this state of ritual impurity by itself allows you to make any act of worship by this wudu, even tawaf, even if you did not intend tawaf, recitation of the Quran, making salah, making one or two or three obligatory prayers together or different. But if you have, the exception is, according to the majority of the scholars, the exception is if you have a continuous disease like continuous bleeding or continuous urination, or a woman who has a menstruation, she has irregular bleeding all the time, istihada. So in this case, when she is making the salah, when she is making wudu, she is not making wudu for two prayers. It's only for one prayer, because there is a hadith about it, and there is a discussion among scholars about it. Okay, because you just temporarily remove the state of ritual impurity for a purpose. So you have to set this purpose in your intention. But the normal wudu that we have, you don't restrict it to a certain act. You understand it? Barakallahu fikum. See you inshallah next time, my brothers and sisters. Barakallahu fikum. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower all His mercy and tranquility on all of you. I'm sorry for coming late, but inshallah next time I will be on time. And also of taking some of your time, or extended the session to compensate some of the time, inshallah. Barakallahu.
We appreciate your extra time, and we wish not to burden you, so apologies from our side.
Yes, barakallahu fikum, Sheikh.
Jazakumullah
khair. The problem is, subhanallah, I thought that our session is on Tuesday. I'm sorry, I did not concentrate. Though I added all the stuff. Maybe my basic preparation was actually to make a session on Thursday, and the group of brothers who swayed on Tuesday. This is the reason that but subhanallah, alhamdulillah, it went very well.
Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu fikum. We'll see you next week. And Shaykhuna, should we send? I was talking about the quiz, the first quiz. Yes. So, did you want to mention that, or?
Yes, inshallah, for the Umdat al-Ahkam, I will share a quiz in the same folder. So I will, inshallah, by today, I will try to put all the materials for Umdat al-Ahkam. Maybe tomorrow, inshallah, you will find them complete along with the quiz and everything, inshallah.
Inshallah. Barakallahu fikum.
Wa iyyakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.